All right, good morning. Happy race day. Hope you guys are all having a great holiday weekend. It's Andrew here with Fast Cars, Fast Money, and we're taking it to the streets of Chicago today. If you want to help us out, you can like, comment, share, retweet our content. It allows us to reach more people. We're only 20 subscribers away from 1,000. Maybe we can hit it this weekend. If you want access to the spreadsheet, or, we also do content typically, for the truck series and the Xfinity series. If I have time, I'll post that over on X. It's at Fast Cars FM. Then, hey, if you want to support me, allow me to buy, some more race shirts, go to some race weekends, buy some die casts, whatever it might be. There's a couple of links there in the support tab to do so. So let's get to the preview in race strategy. We're going to Chicago. It is a street course, road course. We only have 75 laps today. So because of that, really the main thing we want to do is focus on place differential upside and finishing upside. And if we can find drivers who give us both place differential upside and great finishing upside, those are really the plays I think you want to build around. I would target those plays over your dominators or your lap leaders, which are still important. Maybe they can still finish well, but ideally, if I can find a driver that gives me both place differential upside and who I think can finish inside, the top 15, the top 10, the top five, those are really the drivers I think you want to focus on. So, how are we going to find those drivers? Really, I think you can look at practice a little bit, but really I'm looking at just, how do these drivers typically do on the road courses, specifically in the next gen era? So, when we get to the driver by driver breakdown here, you got SVG, who is priced significantly higher than the rest of the field, and for good reason, right? This is his bread and butter. He is so dominant on these tracks. He starts first. He's definitely the heavy favorite. If everything goes clean and according to plan, he should go out there, lead a bulk of the laps, and win the race today. He's going to score well. The issue is he starts first, so he gives you no place differential whatsoever, and he's also pretty expensive. So I think there's a couple different ways you can build today. I think you can build around SVG as your race winner and try to pair him with some place differential plays, or maybe you fade SVG and save the salary and attack some other plays on the slate today. So SVG, not really too much to say there. He should be the favorite to win, but again, he carries some risk based off of what we just talked about. So then you got Larson and Bell. I'm going to throw them together. I think they're more tournament options. They should run well and finish up near the front. The issue is SVG is just so dominant. It's hard to see anyone leading laps outside of SVG. And then you have some other plays up here who had issues in practice and or qualifying, who start really deep in the field, who are also really good on road courses. And that would be William Byron and Chase Elliott. So Byron and Elliott, they offer a ton of place differential upside. It might take them a little bit to kind of work their way through the field, but when it's all said and done, if they have a clean race, even if SVG wins the race, there's a very likely scenario, depending on how high Byron or Elliott finishes, that Byron and Elliott will likely outscore, SVG. So I think you can play all three of them together. I think you can mix and match, fade SVG, just play Byron and Elliott. Maybe try to get different, get Larson or Bell in there for tournaments. So then that leaves Tyler Reddick. Reddick's just kind of the odd man out for me. I really think it's going to be tough for anyone to get around SVG today. Reddick is pretty good on the road courses. The problem is he starts fourth, so not really that much place differential upside. Can finish well, but I think Larson can finish right around where Reddick finishes. I think Bell can finish around where Reddick finishes, and they give us more place differential upside than Reddick does. And same thing with Byron and Elliott, and they give us significantly more place differential upside. So then you got Ty Gibbs there in ninth. Interesting tournament play, pretty good in practice, pretty good on the lap averages as well. Again, if you're building multiple lines, he's kind of a good way to get different, get some leverage on the field today. AJ Allmendinger, we used to talk about him when we got to the road courses. He was kind of the contender or in the mix for the race win, and he still might be, but SVG has really just taken over. So maybe that drops Stinger's ownership. He starts 16th. I think he can get a top 10 today. So I like him for tournaments. Alex Bowman did win this race last year. And if you remember, this race last year was a crazy torrential downpour and just crazy weather. And I think SVG had issues and was out of the race and just comers and goers. And, when it was all said and done, Alex Bowman took the checkered flag. So maybe his ownership gets a bump because of that. Maybe people will see he won this race last year, but for me, DFS wise, I'm just really not too interested in him today. Now, Chris Buescher has been the best driver on the road courses in the next gen era. Starts eighth, limited place differential upside, but I think he can hang around inside the top 10. So, that's another way you can build too. Like, just because these drivers don't give you, place differential upside doesn't mean they're bad plays whatsoever. Like, finishing potential is still really important. So, even if they just check one of those boxes, that still puts them in contention in the player pools, and Chris Buescher definitely does that. Now, McDowell's interesting. Everyone's going to play SVG, but McDowell was pretty good in practice. Um, he's a nice pivot. He's almost 4 grand cheaper than SVG. If SVG has an issue, this looks like McDowell's race to kind of take over, at least based off of what we saw in practice. He was quickest in the 5 and the 10 lap average. He starts on the front row, so if you're building 8 lines today and 6 of them have SVG, make one or two of them with Michael McDowell. You never know. And it's a good way to, kind of hedge yourself a little bit. But, head to head, it's going to be hard for McDowell to overtake SVG in my mind. So really like Ross Chastain today. He looks like a nice tournament option too. I think everyone's going to go after the Byrons, the Elliots, the Hamlins, the Bubba Wallaces, which we'll get to a little bit later on the slate. But Chastain's kind of right there in the mix, good place differential upside, pretty good value. It's been pretty good on the road courses, and I think his ownership might come in a little bit lower than it should. Briscoe, kind of the same, reason as some of these other drivers who start up near the front. Yeah, they start up near the front. Maybe they can finish well, but I would imagine they likely lose some spots as the place differential plays work their way through. I don't really think they have the cars to lead laps and win the race today. It's really just not getting to Briscoe. Cindric has been okay. He's in the player pool. He starts in the second half of the field. I think he can get you a top 20. Bush, kind of like Briscoe, starts a little bit too far forward for me. Suarez starts mid-pack. I think he likely finishes mid-pack. Blaney's interesting. He's okay on the road courses, but starting 17th for only $7,500, I think he gives you a decent amount of value. So again, he's in the player pool. He's not a target play by any means, but I don't mind getting some Blaney ownership in your lineups today. Will Brown, typically we don't really see like these one-off drivers do well, but he was pretty good in practice. He was 12th in the single lap averages, starts 19th, decent car. I don't really think he's going to get that much ownership. So, maybe a top 15 is doable for him today. Hocevar, really good speed. I know he's going to win a race sooner rather than later, but for DFS purposes, starting third is just really hard to get to him. Now, Denny Hamlin is not good on the road courses in the next gen era. However, he's only $7,100 and he starts 40th. So it's really hard for him to, not gain you points. He's really easy to fit in the lineups as well. So, even if I don't think he can finish relatively too high, he's still going to be a driver I want to get into my lineups. And then I'm really not getting to Logano or Keselowski. Logano starts around where I think he's going to finish. Keselowski really hasn't been that good in the next gen era on the road courses. Haley's just having a really bad year. Ryan Preece starts good, but kind of like Chase Briscoe. I don't really see him moving forward that many spots, and he likely drops, a handful of spots as these place differential plays come through. Todd Gilliland, I think, is a nice pivot option. I think everyone's going to play Bubba Wallace, and Gilliland has been decently strong on the road courses, and I think his ownership will be pretty low. So a nice tournament option there. Bubba Wallace spun in qualifying, so that's why he starts deep in the field. Not typically known to be a road course guy, but for only $6,400 starting 37th, kind of like Denny Hamlin. It's really easy to get him in the lines, and he gives you a lot of good value and good upside. And give Bubba some credit. He has been arguably, one of the better cars on the road courses as of late as well. Looked pretty good in practice too. Um, Austin Dillon starts a little bit too far forward for us. Really like John Hunter Nemechek, Zane Smith, and Eric Jones. Again, kind of nice pivot options off of Bubba Wallace. All of them start in the second half of the field. I think all of them give you, top 20 upside as well. Cole Custer's interesting. Typically a guy who runs decently well on the road courses. But I'd rather play Bubba. I'd rather play Todd. I'd rather play John Hunter Nemechek. I'd rather play Zane Smith, Eric Jones. So that's kind of why he dropped down the low interest for me. And then really below that, I don't, excuse me, sip out of my Mark Martin mug. But typically, other than that, if you're going below Jones, really the only guy I would have remote interest in is Ty Dillon. Just if you need like a pure attrition play, if you think this race gets a little chaotic, or you just need a guy who you feel like can finish top 30 to allow you to stack, the plays you really want to target. I go to Ty, but otherwise, Stenhouse starts deep, likely finishes deep. Barry isn't really that good on the road courses. Gregson starts a little bit too far forward, and he wrecked more than anyone on this track last year. Austin Hill, it's kind of, a one-off-ish, race. Really not too interested. Riley Herb starts a little bit too far forward. And then Cody Ware, should be one of the slower cars in the field. Josh Bilicki, good road course guy, but this equipment isn't good. Likely will not last the whole race. And then you got Catherine there, who did qualify and make the race over Corey Heim, which was kind of cool to see. Um, but starting 33rd, I don't really think she's going to gain that many spots. So that's going to do it for the Chicago race. Hope you guys are having a great 4th of July holiday weekend. Enjoy the race today. I'm excited to play today's slate. I'm excited to get this video out to you guys, and hopefully, we can have a good day.